we can take, either our strategic partners that are more on the creative side, or even our clients and their resources, and bake in data and strategy into those existing creative processes. That's what we find works well. And those relationships, when merged, tend to be the ones that perform the best.
Hey everyone, this is Mark DeGrasse, the president of Digital Marketer, and this is the podcast that keeps you updated on everything you need to know when it comes to digital marketing, from the platforms you'd be focused on to the kinds of tactics and tools that are working today. Today, our guest is Adam Chronister, the founder of Enleaf, and we were actually just chatting about one of his most successful stories, which was taking a business from $1,000 a month to $1 million a month over the course of a couple of years. And I'm guessing that was it primarily organic SEO?
Yeah, it was. We did a lot of content, some healthy link acquisition, and implemented a full new website, and really kind of took off. So it was fantastic to see that level of growth. Of course, nothing happens in a vacuum. We had a good team. Everyone was in sync, and that's like they say, teamwork makes the dream work. And so that was a great success story. So
that's awesome. Well, teamwork and consistency, because I think
that's right.
For me,
yeah.
Talking about content, I used to try to sell people on organic content. I'm like, okay, you're gonna work really hard for the next 1 to 3 years,
right?
Then you might make some money.
Yep. No, SEO is definitely a hard sell sometimes when you present it that way, but it really can lower your cost barrier if done right, and it can set you up for life, right? So
yeah, easy. Well, and I think it's more important, than ever. I hate using that cliche. More important than ever. With kind of the shifting things, and one of the things I talk a lot about is that if we're able to make paid media much more effective. Like, let's say that it's just easier to set up, it's more effective, it's generative, so you don't have to do a bunch of tweaking all the time. So now all of a sudden anybody can get into paid media and start making money. The cost of that paid media is going to get super expensive.
Yeah. But I literally just, it's funny you say that. I literally just got off a client call, and they want to, ramp up their paid media, and they're not doing any SEO. And I've been knocking on that door for years now. I'm like, you guys are in the perfect opportunity, because the only area where they're competing, they're kind of in a niche market, is in the paid space. I'm like, it's doing well, it's working for you. Obviously you want to expand your budget, but consider SEO, because it's an area where you can reduce your cost, and none of your competitors are doing it. They're all just throwing money at the problem, which is, it's necessary at times, but it's not the only factor, right?
Well, I think long term it's going to be completely essential. Like, it'll be almost impossible. I would not be surprised if we see a time in the near future when break even on your initial paid ad campaign is a fantastic result. And really, we've been getting to this point for a while, because it used to be like $100 was $5,000, and then $100 was $1,000, and $100 is $200, and you're like, okay, But, just so people understand, because SEO and content are, two sides of the same coin, pretty much. Like, you have to optimize the content for finding, have to make the content because people like to have interesting things to look at. Now, with that said, my question is always to SEO professionals is, what's going to stop Google from saying, you know what, instead of sending anybody else traffic, we have all our user information. We know the emails they send. We know the traffic, where they go to on the web. We know what's in their drive. We know all this information. We could make tons of good generative content. Why wouldn't they just start creating all the content for their users versus sending it to other people, like they do right now?
Yeah. It's a good question. Like, I've seen in the past where Google has tried to kind of snag other people's content. I don't know how many people remember AMP, the accelerated mobile pages, but this is one of Google's, I guess, failed attempts to keep people from landing on a website, basically fetching that information and presenting it in search, right? And so I do think at some points, Google has kind of a double-sided interest to keep people in the search results and not necessarily on the landing page. But on the flip side, you see, how they typically double down on what they call, helpful content or quality content. And so there's still this idea that I think they still have to acknowledge that there are creative ideas that don't happen in a vacuum, right? That
Mhm.
there has to be content that people want to engage with that is not going to just come out of nowhere, right? It has to come out of some form of creativity, and you see that in other realms outside of just search. You look at social media and, all those things, the creativeness that still is hard to be replicated purely by an algorithm or a machine. Now, of course, algorithms will leverage those things. And so that's kind of where I see that medium between, um, just a full supplication and, production of non-human based data versus what's fed in other systems. So,
Mm. Well, I think the focus on creativity always, I always pivot to, if your brand doesn't have creative content, like if it's just whatever content, that's not going to be good enough anymore. It has to
right.
be stylized, has to be in a voice, has to target
Mm.
an individual user, which is difficult because, for a lot of business owners, like they hate making content that's too specific because it's like, well,
Yeah.
what about this other group? Do you have something that you tell them to convince them like, no, we have to make targeted content because otherwise it's, not useless, but it's
Mm.
less useful in terms of what you're trying to achieve, which is more customers.
Yeah. Um, I think with a lot of our customers, the conversation is about taking what they already have from a brand emphasis and actually um, better orienting it for like search, right? So luckily we have a lot of clients that are pretty good on the creative side, but it's the analytical side where, we have to kind of step in and say, okay, let's take your creative juices, right? Your ability to talk about the brand or the product. And now let's get a little bit more analytical with it. And let's say, okay, let's start asking good questions like, what is it that your customer audience is actually looking for? And now how do we bake that into, your already existing creative processes? So I would say more so like, and that's like in our DNA where I don't necessarily consider Enleaf a overly creative agency, right?
Yeah.
Um, what we're good at is data, right? We can take, either our strategic partners that are more on the creative side, or even our clients and their resources, and bake in data and strategy into those existing creative processes. That's what we find works well, and those relationships, when merged, tend to be the ones that perform the best. So,
That makes sense. Well, and I love knowing that the content that I'm making actually has, some research behind it where it's like, oh,
yeah,
I hope I don't spend my time making a whole bunch of new data that nobody actually
right.
likes or will do
Yeah, the
anything with.
best content in the world is useless if no one actually sees it, right? So, it's really twofold. One, you have to get people to the content, and then once you get them to the content, then you have to figure out how to keep their engagement, convert them into an action. And so, that those are the two sides of that coin.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and for that on that side, I always tell people that if you could categorize your content correctly, then when people find one piece of content, they'll be happy because they find more content that kind of fits it. And I think
Yeah.
it used to be more present online because I remember,
Mm.
5, 10 years ago getting stuck in one of those, rabbit holes of like you click on one article and then you scroll down the bottom and there was always, and I think it was through, it's not Braintree. Um, but there was a company that actually would embed other articles from other websites. And that was kind of their entire model was based off of these links content to, referred articles.
Yeah.
Um, I don't see it as much anymore. Like I rarely go down a rabbit hole of like an
Yeah.
article, then an article, then an
Mm.
article. Is there a reason for that for SEO wise? Like, do people just not do that anymore?
Quite honestly, I'm hearing a lot more. I think the term that comes up relative to what you're talking about now is like topical authority.
Mm,
And although to your point, I don't see enough people doing that, right? What we've seen lately, and I think it's worked a lot. I think it's only lately that it's been kind of people have clinging on to this idea of what's called topical authority, right?
mm,
The idea that if you become the topic authority for a particular subject, Google and other search engines are going to recognize that, and you're going to typically dominate. And that's one of those tactics. I mean, even just this last week, I was kind of in a back and forth on, you know, ranking without links, right? Or can you do it purely with content? And kind of our take is yes, you can, and we are still proponents of link acquisition and link building, but you can utilize, topical authority, be basically a number of associated topics and articles that reference and link to one another to rank and dominate and search. And so, while to your point, I don't see enough people doing that, it certainly is a tactic that could and should be utilized. In fact, we actually just got done internally building what we call our Topical Authority AI tool. So basically it's kind of like our own take on answer to the public, right? If anyone has ever used that tool, we have a spreadsheet that utilizes interrogative terms, and then from that pulls a list of keywords, and then kind of organizes a hierarchy so that we, within a matter of minutes, create keyword research that's already kind of positioned around that topical authority roadmap. So that's something we're personally excited about. That's definitely relevant to this, this thread of conversation. So
that is so funny that it led in so well, because I didn't know you were doing that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. You want to prioritize your work that will really move the needle for your business's growth, but you're not sure how to do that while keeping up with all the repetitive day-to-day tasks. Keep Sales and Marketing Automation software is designed to help small business teams take their time back from busy work. It helps you organize your customer and lead information in one place, automate follow-ups and appointments, get paid faster, and stay on top of opportunities in your sales pipeline, all while freeing your team up to focus on the work that will have the biggest impact. Here at Digital Marketer, we've trusted Keep to help us get real results from our campaigns for 10 years. Visit keep.com/DM to learn more and get Keep's Lifestyle Automation Guide, which walks you through their proven framework for growth and helps you identify gaps in your customer lifecycle. That's keep.com/DM. Like, that's exactly, well, because I always try to explain people, logically, and kind of going through the thought process of like, here's why you have to connect concepts and why you should, and all these different reasons. But yeah, if you have a tool for it, that sounds amazing. Is that out now or
not yet? I'm probably going to be sharing this. I'm giving a talk in August in Estonia, so I think that's the first time I'm going to reveal it to the public. Still pulling in some search volume APIs. That's the last part of the puzzle, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So,
oh, that's fantastic. Well, and it's exactly what I think is 100% necessary for everybody's content strategy, because I think my problem with SEO to date, and one of the reasons why we're rebuilding our SEO certification, is because of this focus on individual keywords as a first step, which always bothered me.
Yeah.
Because it's, who cares about one keyword?
We really try to break our clients out of that idea. Sometimes we have clients that know enough to be dangerous, and and we have to break them of what we're kind of older models, right? It's like, oh, I want to rank for these 5 keywords. And it's like, well, that's not really how search works anymore, right? We do pay attention to keywords, right? And we do kind of anchor a piece of content to a keyword, but we like to caveat that, hey, this page is going to rank for one or many terms. What we really care about is the number of terms that a page is ranking for, and the visibility and traffic that is garnered there, but it's really a lot more about semantics, right? So you have your keyword that's still kind of your pillar, but then there's all the semantically related terms. So yeah, I'm with you. Like the idea of just focusing on one particular keyword. I want to be number one for, fill in the blank. Like, it's not really where search is at anymore, right?
No, well, and really, who cares about getting one hit too? Because I know for me, when I do research on Google and I pull up articles, I don't go into the article and like, you know what, that was a really good piece. I think I'll subscribe to their newsletter. It usually takes me landing on that same brand for multiple topics, multiple times. And then I'm like, okay, these guys seem to pop up every single time I look up this topic. They're always top ranked. They always have good information. Now I'm going to go check out their LinkedIn feed or their Facebook feed or their newsletter. But it's definitely not one article. you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
it's just
Yep.
doesn't do it now. So
Yeah.
in terms of volume, then let's talk about that real quick. What's good volume today for SEO, or something that somebody who's like, I want to be a topical authority
Mhm.
should aim for in terms of releasing pieces?
You mean like is it volume per keyword, volume per page,
Volume
like
just
what?
in general. Like
Just in
I'm
general.
I'm saying I want content to be a focus for my business. I
Right.
want to be, I want to show up as often as possible. Like, because I
Yeah.
remember when I used to do SEO back 10 years ago, I used to be like,
Mhm.
well, to get on Google News, I need to come out with 5, pieces of content per
I
day
see.
and have
Yeah.
them optimized. So now I'm considered a news source. Is there still that
Right.
kind of parameter, or what do you recommend?
As far as like volume of content created, it's going to kind of depend on the client, whether you're talking about a local client or national client. And then also the one thing that because I have a lot of clients, sometimes some of them, a lot of them we supplement content, and then others that we're building the strategy, and then either, others also that are just more on a consulting side. And so one of the questions that comes up a lot is like, to your point, like how many pieces of content should I be creating? And I think in some respects, sometimes that can be the wrong question. And I like Brian Dean as example. So he built his entire like website off of, I don't think he wrote more than one blog post per month. But they were the most in-depth pieces of content on that subject matter, right? And so I tell my clients like, hey, I would rather you write one piece of
Mm.
content that is the most in-depth, most thorough piece of content, than, a blog post every week, right? Um, but also, I also have to caveat that with, again, breaking kind of old, ideas. It's not just about word count, right? It's really about semantics. I mean, if you have the right semantics in play, synonyms and all of that stuff, you can write less and perform better because Google doesn't care about word count. They care about, the connections between the terms that are in a piece of content. So it's really hard to say. You can go broad and create those exhaustive pieces of content, or you can do the more topical authority where Google again sees those correlations between separated pieces of content. Both of those strategies work. Um, Whenever we're trying to determine for a client how many pieces of content they should create, normally we're going to do that through kind of a gap analysis or competitive analysis to figure out, hey, if you say that you want to rank for this term or these terms, we need to understand, what the competition has versus you, right? How many pages are indexed in Google? How many links do they have, uh, in incoming in their site? So that's how we determine it. It's really a case by case basis. So.
Mm. No, and that makes a lot of sense too, because I think if you think in terms of your private community versus the entire world through search
Mhm.
engines,
Yeah.
then it starts to get more clear what you should
Right.
do. Because
Yeah.
maybe, if you're in some technical industry, say research, science
Hmm.
research, where you're like, okay, if you can't just put out an article, it
Right.
doesn't work
Yeah.
like that. People would
Yeah.
tear you apart and ruin your career if
Mhm.
you half-ass something. So
Right.
I do think that's very true. But on the flip side, I do think some industries aren't that scientific or
Yeah.
specific or technical, and there's no reason why they wouldn't expect you to come out with a TikTok a day if
Sure. Right.
that's what you're capable of doing. Or maybe they just expect it like, hey, I can't have one piece of content. I need an entire season because I have a
Mhm.
Saturday afternoon off
Yeah.
and I need 8 hours,
Yeah.
So
I see. We have a term internally, or a phrase. It's like we call it content for content's sake, right? We
mm,
see a lot of
yeah,
clients come to us and they're in that trap, like, well, we write a blog post a week. I'm like, yeah, but do you have any data? Do you know what traffic it's getting? No, we read on a blog we should be writing a
we should
blog
do
post
this.
every week or every month. And so again, it's like, okay, get out of the idea of writing content for content's sake. Understand what is the objective of that content, so that you can, make good use of the time that you invest in creating that, right? So.
Well, that's true too. And I think even for, content for purpose, It could be for your existing customers, and it's just a question that you get super often. So you having an article or a video about it makes a lot of sense. But this has been great, and I think your kind of approach to SEO and content seems very in line with what we teach here at Digital Marketers. So we'll have to have you back soon to talk about some more advanced concepts, and that tool that you're coming out with sounds fantastical. I mean, fantastical. Sounds fantastic. I think it's what everybody needs. So
we're really excited about it. So
where can people follow you for updates, or is there an update page for that?
No updates yet. This is something that we'll be rolling out, but if you want to follow us, the website is enleaf.com. That's ENLEAF.com. That's where you can find our blog. We have a number of free tools that are there. So there are some tools there, and as we release tools, that's where we'll be putting those as well in the tool section of the website. So.
Oh, fantastic. I think that sounds amazing. And we'll definitely have you on again soon. Talk about some new SEO stuff as things develop. I'm super interested in this. And like I said, we're working on our SEO cert renewal in the near future. So everybody stay tuned for that as well. All right. Thank you so much, Adam. And
my pleasure. Yeah.
I think and like I said, we'll have you back on because there's so many questions I have about SEO. So I think we'll probably turn this into a series, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit that follow button so you get notified when all of our new episodes release. Please share this with that friend who's clueless about digital marketing. And don't forget to visit digitalmarketer.com, where you can access all of our courses, certifications, and training programs. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.